And welcome back to another video with SirLucien from the SirLucien Gaming channel and your co-host of the Saturday morning D&D show. I want to do a quick video about, as you can see here, should you buy or should you pass on Secrets of Saltmarsh, or Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is the name of the book, based off of the adventures of the U series from Dungeons & Dragons. Super cool. So, this just came out on May 21st, and I just want to put out a very quick video about it, a spoiler-free review of the book. I've read through most of it, though not every single word, because I want some of it to be a mystery. But I did go through the main important parts because I wanted to know who is this book for, and I'm hoping this video will help you out with that. So, 8 chapters in this book. This is a book of multiple adventures that are independent enough that you can drop into your campaign just about anywhere that has a coastline. Could be even a large lake or a large sea. It could be a homebrew. You could be using Forgotten Realms. You could be using Greyhawk. You could be using Eberron. They mention all these other areas inside the book itself on how you could place them in different areas for you to go ahead and run these adventures, or you could run them linked together. They can be loosely played in order-ish. Most of them, you may need to use a little bit of DM initiative to get your party kind of on track or online of the next storyline when you go from one to the other, because they are very modular in this way. So it is a very kind of DM-centric book and not necessarily a player-centric book for Dungeons & Dragons. So let's just jump right to it. I think Chapter 1 is the big chapter for explaining Saltmarsh itself, which I think is a really good description of a small town and a perfect place to start out an adventuring party. Like, it gives you the factions that are going on, what their wants and needs are, how they react to different things happening, and enough factions that you're not overwhelmed, but easily able to, as a DM, kind of keep track of and kind of maneuver them in the background of what your party is doing, along with the actual adventures that you might be sending them on. So this is one of my favorite chapters to read, was definitely Chapter 1. After that, you start getting into the actual parts that were modules or single adventures that can then be stringed together. And so you have chapters 2 through 8 go through each one of those. And this is more of, here's a storyline, here's something that the players could do or be hired to do or could get involved with, and here's all the things that you would need for that. So you get 8 of those, well, 7 of those. And then you have a really good, another kind of sandwiched after that, is the Appendix A of the book, which is all about ships of the sea and things like ship blocks and sample ships and officers and crew, how to upgrade those ships, combat, how to do water combat, how to have encounters, how to deal with a couple of ones that they created for you to use, like the wreck of the Marshall or the Wallkill ruins or something like that. These are all little items that you can place into your campaign or adventure also. And then we have an Appendix B, which is magic items, and Appendix C, which is all the stat blocks. So what's the good and what's the bad for me? The good is this is a DM book, which we said, not necessarily a player book. Let's stick with the DM side of it. So the DM side of it, this is, if you really liked Tales from the Yawning Portal, you will like this book because you have different pieces that you can place in different areas. If you have a homebrew campaign that you want to put in some of these sea-type adventures, sea or ocean-going adventures, this is a good book for you. This has some ready-to-go things that make it really easy for you as far as setup and just running them without having to do too much prep, just reading through them. And it's kind of, I feel like it's written in such a way that it's easy to follow and it's easy to run these adventures because they know they're adventures and they're not necessarily stringed together, where if you're doing like a Storm King's Thunder or a Tomb Annihilation, there's a lot to read before you start to run those adventures because they're big spanning adventure campaign settings, storylines basically. And this one is more, little pieces. Now, it does talk about how you can string them together and the ways that you might bring the party that you have all the way from, level 1 up into that level 12 to 13-ish area, depending on what they do in between. It leaves plenty of area for you to play around with things that happen in between or during some of these adventures too. So you have plenty of creative space as a dungeon master to kind of make it your own, even if you kind of follow it, the adventures 1 through 7. I think Saltmarsh is a great town, a great starter town, one of my favorite starter towns. The only one that I can think of that really captured my imagination more than this one did was in the old days, Temple of Elemental Evil, and the way that they started you out in Hamlet. That was a very cool place to start characters because it just felt like it's a character of its own. Saltmarsh feels like a character of its own to me, and I think it's a good starting place, even if you just throw it in anywhere. Now, if you want to run it as it is, this is a Greyhawk setting. It mentions areas in Greyhawk and gives you maps of what you will see in the surrounding areas of Greyhawk and how it all intertwines with each other. And if you're a Greyhawk fan, well, then you're going to get to play in Greyhawk, which is super cool. So this could be, if you already understand where Greyhawk is and you know where these places are, this could fit into and be a really good start to a nice Greyhawk. D&D 5e version Greyhawk, starting campaign, this is the one for you for sure. Now, let's say you're a Forgotten Realms DM and you love to put all your games into Forgotten Realms. Well, that's super easy because you have all of the Sword Coasts to deal with. You have all of the inland seas that are going on. You have many places that you could place this Saltmarsh, even if you wanted to rename it, just doing a little bit of tweaking or leaving it as is. It'll be very easy to plop down into the Forgotten Realms. It'll fit right in. It has the same tone as a Forgotten Realm, so it's not really out of place in any way. And then if you're a homebrew GM or dungeon master, it definitely has the ability to fit in anybody's homebrew that has seagoing, ocean style combat, or at least large oceans, large seas. I guess the only one who wouldn't want this would be a dungeon master who's maybe doing it on a desert planet, or is more sci-fi, or is like Underdark, or is something else like that. Then there might not be much here for you. But if you've got large oceans and seas in your homebrew campaign, then I could see very easily pieces of this fitting into your campaign, or even just starting this out. Let your players go all through all of these, and then you take a higher level campaign after that in your homebrew world, which would be really fun and cool. I didn't go through, I kind of skimmed through the adventures themselves. They are pretty standard fare. They have the pretty typical, most of them have the hooks that you need to get your players going. A few of them might need a massage here or there from the dungeon master to make work for the party that you're running. I felt like they were well written. If not, I wouldn't say perfect, or I wouldn't say there couldn't be some things that you could improve, depending on what type of dungeon master you are. Now, Appendix A is a highlight. So I feel like Chapter 1, Saltmarsh, is a highlight for a dungeon master, and Appendix A. For those two pieces, even if you didn't care about the rest of it in the middle or any other piece, those two pieces make this book worth it to me as a dungeon master to own, because you have all of the ship combat stuff that you can do, all of the vehicle rules, all of the different environment rules, how do you fight underwater, what happens when you're underwater, all these different things, how do things react, those kinds of things. All of that really could fit into your campaign, I think, and would be a really good addition to any campaign. I thought the Appendix B magic items was super weak, super disappointed in what they included there. It was very small, and it had kind of not even things that you might use very often or would want to give to your party. I felt like they could have at least, even if they wanted to keep it to a page, kind of basically like they did, they could have filled that page out better with better items. I felt like that was a real downside of this book. I didn't feel like it really captured me with some really cool ideas for new magic items introduced into your campaign. And then the monsters and NPCs, again, at first this feels like, okay, this is going to be great because you can have, there's probably, they might mention somewhere around 20 to 30 different creatures, but nearly half of those are reprints from other books that you might already have. So you might have got them from Volos or Mordecaians or something like that, or even the Monster Manual. And then there are a handful that are new, never been in any of the books, and then there are some that are more like tweaked, where you've seen it before in one version, but now there's another version of it. There's like a guard version or a wizard version, or whatever their names they have of them. So I thought it was pretty good, but I felt like they could have really given us a nice block of full creatures to deal with instead of just the idea that it was a few of these reprints, a few kind of reflavored, and then just a couple or a handful of new ones. So, having said all of that, $49.95 at your local game store. There are 2 alternate covers, and if you're a collector, you might want to get this to have up on your shelf. It's going to fit right up on your shelf. You have the 2 different versions that you can go ahead and take a look at. I looked at both D&D Beyond's version and the Roll20 version. I've seen both of them. And if you're running these, I thought either one of these would be very helpful for a dungeon master to run. If you're running it at a table, then the D&D Beyond version could be good enough for you to get away with without having the physical book itself. Or if you're going to run an online version, Roll20 is my go-to. And the way they set it up in Roll20, it's fantastic. So it has all the things that you want. Lots of maps, lots of battle maps and ship maps and all kinds of stuff that you can use. And lots of already pre-set up NPCs and, dynamic lighting and all that kind of stuff. So definitely there. If you're a player, do you want this book? You get a few backgrounds that get added in. There's no new player classes. I didn't see any new spells or anything that you would get. The magic items would only be given to you by a dungeon master if they include them in. It might be cool to understand how the ships work as a player, but I don't know if this is a book you need or want. It may just be a book that you want to look through if your dungeon master lets you at some point after you guys have played the campaign, or as long as you're a nice, honest player and you don't go through the adventure portion, you just go through the portions that are the appendix areas, which I think you'll be able to see just about anywhere else. So, I believe it's a great book if you want modular pieces to put in. I think looks like it's a fun adventure. It reads really well, and I think the art and the writing is high quality in this book. We've only seen an increase of their ability to put out really good books, and I think this is one that will definitely probably go up on my shelf, and I'll probably maybe even down the line buy it on Roll20 and then maybe even play it out. I know that my co-host for the Saturday Morning D&D show is planning on playing his Secrets of Saltmarsh. And I always say Secrets of Saltmarsh because I remember the original one so well, but it's Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about that on our show. So go ahead and check us out on Saturday mornings at 12 p.m. Eastern for the Saturday Morning D&D show with my co-host Jordan. The PH is silent, and I am SirLucien from SirLucien Gaming. I hope to see you in the next video. Maybe you go out and buy this. Write down in the comments if you did, or maybe you decided to pass. Tell us why you passed on this book. Let us know why it was a book that you didn't want to get. So hope to see you again. Don't miss our videos. Don't miss the YouTubes or the Twitches. Go ahead and check us out on Twitter at SirLucien Gaming, all one word, Lucien. I know some people get that wrong. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.